Hello and God bless you. Well, today we are going to be talking about a story that I'm sure everyone has probably heard. It's from 2 Kings chapter 5, and it's about Naaman, who was servant of the king of Syria, and how he went to go. He was a leper, and he wanted to get healing, and that's the story we're going to talk about, because there's a wrap-up to this story that when this story is preached and talked about, it's kind of overlooked. And I had a preacher that one time had mentioned this, but it's kind of worded a little hard to understand. I wish it was a little bit more clear, just because it is a neat wrap-up to the story. But we're going to go into that, and like I always say, if, don't take my word for it and search the scriptures for yourself. See if everything's true. We're going to try to give you just the word of God, not opinion. So I hope you enjoy it. Alright, here in verse 1 it says, Now Naaman, the captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable. Because of him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captives out of the land of Israel, a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went on in and told his Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. Here in verse 5 it says, And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, Am I a God to kill and to make alive? That is, man doeth send unto me a man, send to me recover a man of his leprosy. Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was so, when Elijah the man of God had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he had sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariots, and stood at the door of the house of Elijah. And Elijah sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naaman was wroth, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me, and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and strike his hands over the place, and recover the leprosy. The leper. Are not Aban and Philphar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May not I wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in rage. And his servant came near and spoke unto him, and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather then, when he saith to thee, wash and be clean? Then he went down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth, but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. See, this is about to get to where I want to bring this, my main part that we wanted to be talking about today, because we know the story from what we read so far. We know that Naaman was a leper, and he wanted to get clean, and he went to Elijah's, and Elijah didn't come to the door. He sent his messenger, and that made Naaman mad, because he thought, well, who is this guy that he's going to send a servant, instead of himself, come to the door? But he didn't like what he told him. He thought that, why do I got to do it here? So he was kind of mad, but he ended up, but like we read, his servant said, just try it. Let's see what happens, So he tries it, and he comes clean, and now he's coming back, and he wants to give him a gift, because he's realized now that the God of Israel is the one true living God. And Elijah's response is, But he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused it. Because, as we know, healing, salvation, any gift of God can't be bought or sold. So this is the part I want to kind of show you here. It's, like I said, it's kind of written a little hard to understand. This is verse 17. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto any other gods, but unto the Lord. And see what, and I urge you to search this out for yourself. But what he's asking here is he's saying, well, you're not going to take these payments that I'm offering, but I realize that this is the true God and that there's no other God. So he wants dirt from Israel to put in the house where he worships, to put the dirt of the God of Israel, Israel's dirt, on where he goes. So when he's kneeling down, and he's giving honor to the one true living God. Here in 19 it says, In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of this fake God to worship there, and he leaneth on my hands, and I bow myself in the house of this fake God, when I bow down myself in the house of this fake God, the Lord will pardon thy servant in this thing. What he's saying here is he's kind of saying, I want this dirt, and I want to put this dirt on the ground in the house of this fake God. And when I lean down, I'm going to be worshiping the real and true living God, the God of Israel, and not this fake God. And he's asking Elijah, he says, well, do you think God will let me do that? And this is his response here in the last verse that we're going to talk about, number 19. It says, And he said unto him, Go in peace. And it says, And so he departed from him a little way. And that goes on to, Elijah's servant putting a curse on himself. But I just hope y'all enjoyed this message today. I really thought it was really neat, because when I first read this, when I first heard that about the 2 mules thing, a preacher had said it, so whenever that preacher had said that, this was like 3 or 4 years ago, he'd brought that into my mind. And this last time that I was reading through the Bible, I've since then, read all the way through and started back, but I was in the Kings, and I didn't remember anywhere where this was. When I heard a few years ago, we was having a sermon series to the Kings, and I just kind of thought about that, and I'm like, Lord, if you can just kind of bring that in my mind, I'd like to see it again. And like I read it to y'all, and it's kind of a little hard to understand what they're saying there. Like I said, I wish it was a little bit clearer because it's such a cool end to that story that he wanted to worship on the dirt of Israel because that one true living God is the God of Israel. And I knew that story, Naaman. That's the whole story of the leprosy and everything. I known that so well, but I didn't ever remember that part being attached to it. But when I read through it, that part about the mules, just with the dirt and everything, that just stuck out like a sore thumb, and it just really got me excited. And I hope y'all enjoyed it as well. And like I said, just search the scriptures for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I love y'all. God bless y'all. Have a great week.